I've only known one name to which I am called, Velvet, but it has not always been so. I was raised into a world of shadows. I was bred to be a warrior from childhood, unlike any the world had ever seen before, and I put the trades I had been taught to use in service to my adopted father's dream. I have taken the lives of countless souls, destroyer of entire nations and general of an army that was dreamt one nightmare at a time. I've seen and have done terrible things, but always I remained faithful to what I am, who I was supposed to be. The world burned, brighter than it had in centuries. I watched an entire continent swept up in the flames of war, one that my people had started, only the first in what would be the last war mankind would ever know, or so we all believed. The symbols of old, the things that gave them hope, did not stand long against the tide that was, the Order. It would all burn in the end. The fall of Europe was only the first stage of my father's divine ambitions. His eyes have always been set elsewhere, across the sea, to a power that until our arrival seemed unparalleled to any nation to have ever come before. It was I who carried out his will. It was I that led his armies to victory in Europe. In only 2 short years, as powerful as the combined nations of Europe were, it was not enough to stand against us. We used their own ignorance, their own complacency and technology against them. They all fought bravely, like true heroes, but their efforts were, in the end, futile. In the last days of the war, I watched my own country of birth, in a last act of defiance against the Order, and its complete subjugation of the mainland, unleashed hell upon its own soil. Better to burn one's own land in a firestorm than to let us have it, or so they believed. It did not matter in the end. We had what we wanted. The bones of hundreds of thousands lie within the ruins of Europe, but from it I knew that our efforts were just. We would build a new world, a better world, that was no longer ruled by the corrupted and wicked. I had helped usher in a new era for mankind. I should have been filled with pride with the defeat of our enemies, but at last, the victory and my purpose in my father's dream was hollow. I felt sorrow for the first time, for what I had done and what I had become, and what I had done in his name, in the name of progress. The war had been an escape for me, but when it was over, the dreams I so longed to forget returned. The eyes of my true mother, lifeless, staring up at me, the bright crimson red of her own blood across the floor, ashamed of what I had become. The love of a man, the only such man I had ever given my heart to, his betrayal that led me down this path of despair, as he for a time, ever so short as it was, had years before caused me to doubt all that I had held dear. And the ambitions of my father, the world he wanted to create, was creating, and the role he desired me to play in his crusade. I could no longer take it. The question of who I was, who I should be, lingered too long. So I fled my duties, my oath and service to my father and the Order, and headed east, into the wilderness of a world I knew nothing about. My father, however, would not let my actions go without notice. He sent his greatest warriors after me to bring me back to him. Out of love or fear, I do not know, nor do I dare to pretend that I could ever understand him. As the world fell into darkness, as those last few nations that still stood against the Order waited for a second war, I had my own battles to fight. My father's army was never far behind me. Even with all of my training, the many battles I had fought and lived through, and the unseen hand that pulled me towards my goals were not enough, as I was left with nowhere else to run to. I was caught, so near to my goals, the answer to whom I really was. I was defeated. I was left to die. A traitor and deserter. A coward that ran from her duties. I had betrayed everything that I was raised to believe in. I had a purpose once, and a role in creating a better world. I should have been ashamed as I lay bleeding out, a slow and cold death in a country that was not my own. But those thoughts were not what haunted me as I died. I had failed her. I would never know who I was before all of this, before the wars and death that I had brought to this world, or the woman that she had hoped I might grow up to become. I deserved this fate. But out from the cold and endless darkness that was consuming my narrow world, a new face appeared before me and reached out. I recognized him, and if I had the strength still left in my body, I would have lashed out. He had come for me, Arcady. After all these years we had been apart, he had never stopped looking out for me, tracking my movements and coming to me in my hour of need. Why? Out of love? A sentimental fool, but I was not in any position to argue. He took me away from the world that I had escaped from and brought me back to his own embattled country, one which waited daily for the order to cross the Atlantic and do to America as it had done to Europe a year prior. When I recovered, this man that I had sworn to hate, to kill if given the chance for what he had done to me and what now seemed like another lifetime, offered me the one thing that drove me away from the order, the answer to whom I really am. I serve a new master, with new chains bound to me. I will stand willingly against everything that I was in defense of a people, ideas and lands that are not my own. But I will stand with my enemies and defy my father's dreams. A better world is one worth fighting for, and I still believe in the dream that could be the order. But I know now that my father's methods are not the only way to bring about a better future. This is a war, however, that even I can't win. Sorrow for the world is no more.